Dear Tim and Moby. Can you tell me about the history of railways? From Sachin. Oh no. Mom is gonna freak. Well, I guess we might as well answer this. People have been building railroads for centuries. The first rails were laid down for horse-drawn carts. These early wagonways only ran for short stretches, like from a mine to a nearby river. Horses could pull more weight and do it faster over smooth rails than bumpy roads. Things changed when Scottish engineer James Watt developed his steam engine. Steam engines convert heat into motion. The earliest models were too heavy and weak to power a train, but inventors kept tinkering with the design. By the 1820s, they'd advanced to the point where the first railroads began operating in Great Britain, followed by the United States. You're right, this period was known as the Industrial Revolution. Newly invented machines were transforming the way people lived and worked. City populations exploded as societies moved from farming into manufacturing. Railroads were a huge part of that. In fact, wherever tracks were laid, towns and industry were almost certain to follow. Well, like the early wagonways, the first railroads were short lengths of track. They were used mainly for freight service, transporting bulk goods. Oh, like hauling coal from a mine or moving raw cotton to a cloth factory. Freight lines quickly became profitable. Unlike canals and rivers, which froze up during winter, trains could be used year-round. And they crashed much less often than boats sank. Supplied by railroads, city populations could grow bigger than ever before, and factories could work around the clock. Yep, railroads pushed the American frontier farther and farther west, with new towns springing up along the major routes. Just a few decades after the first lines were built, there were enough tracks in America to wrap around the planet. And they weren't just hauling cargo. Trains were becoming the most popular mode of long-distance travel. Meanwhile, railroad owners like Cornelius Vanderbilt and Jay Gould were becoming household names. Some of these men became philanthropists, donating chunks of their fortunes to universities and other public projects. Others were seen more as robber barons, men who used their political influence to amass wealth and power. As new innovations made steel cheaper and stronger, the pace of construction picked up. Soon, rail lines were being built across entire continents. In Europe, the Orient Express stretched from Paris, France, to Istanbul, Turkey. In Russia, the Trans-Siberian Railway spanned almost 6,000 miles, from St. Petersburg all the way to the Pacific. And in America, the Transcontinental Railroad connected the existing rail network in the east to the Pacific Ocean. Running 1,700 miles from Nebraska to California, it was actually built by two different companies. The Union Pacific started in Omaha and built tracks going west, while the Central Pacific began in Sacramento and built tracks going east. Tens of thousands of laborers laid track and blasted through obstacles. In the east, many of these workmen were immigrants from Ireland, while in the west, most came from China. The project was completed in 1869 when the two lines met in Utah. All of a sudden, it took just 6 days to get from New York to California. Previously, it had taken 6 months. The railroad brought rapid development to the western states and spelled the end of the wild frontier. Well, the railroads dominated America until the 1920s when people began traveling by automobile instead. As for freight, these days most of it is carried by trucks over the interstate highway system. But in other parts of the world, lots of people still travel by high-speed train. These can move faster than 150 miles per hour. Well, right now there's only one high-speed train in the United States, but... Oh no. How are you doing this? There are no tracks.